Hello again, everybody, and welcome to You Bet CaneSport with Lee Sterling, our weekly look at the Miami Hurricanes game from a bettor's perspective. I'm Gary Furman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by Lee Sterling himself. And Lee, we got some challenges for you this week, I think. Let's start with Miami, Virginia Tech. I don't know how the heck you handicap this game. You got a Miami team that's coming off the disappointment of Florida State. You don't really know. They have not performed well late in the season the past few years. You've got a Virginia Tech team that just lost their head coach. God knows what impact that's going to have. The betting line, I guess, is Miami's a 7.5 point favorite in this game. I'm not quite sure how the line makers came up with that. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you to make sense of all of this for us and tell us what you think about this game.
So here's what was good. I got to watch Virginia Tech play Duke, so our next two opponents, which pretty telling. Get a real good feel on those two. So Virginia Tech does a lot of things that give Miami problems. They do a lot of negative influence, a lot of motion. They will fake one way, come back the other way, and as we know, our running backs have done really well against poor defenses. But conversely, I think our linebackers are going to have trouble against this type of offense. I mean, sometimes they'll have a tight end coming in motion one way. He stops, a receiver coming back the other way, a jet sweep. Sometimes the quarterback is wheeling and dealing two different ways. And if a linebacker really isn't, paying attention and reading his keys, he's going to make mistakes and be out of place, and it leads to big plays. So that's the bad part about playing this type of offense. I mean, they're not super talented. Their quarterback, Burmeister, is okay. He's pedestrian, not a great runner, not a great thrower, but not horrible. They, it just seems like when they play better teams, they can't step it up except for, the first game of the year, which everyone remembers was the North Carolina game. I think they prepared for that game for like 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, they were ready. They had
really for 8-9 months.
They were shot out of a cannon. You're like, oh, this is like the old, Virginia Tech team here playing defense, offensively had a spark, but I think they'll score some on us. But I think their defense is limited. They just don't have players. They don't have that defensive lineman or a linebacker or safety that can make plays. And some people will say, oh, are you talking about sacks or interceptions? Not always the case. You want guys that can make plays. A lot of times the best players in like a 3rd and 5 will make a tackle on a screen play a yard or two before the first down. It gets your defense off. They don't have that. So I think we're better, believe it or not, defensively than they are. I think we have more weapons than they do. I just think 7.5 points is a lot. Now, I know they don't have their coach, but they got nothing to lose. I mean, they've run a lot of reverses and, pitchbacks and all kinds of crazy stuff, fake punts anyway. So what's going to limit them now? So I think Miami will win the game something like 35-30. I'll take the 7.5 and probably a lean to the over also. I mean, the over, I had Miami in the over last week. If Miami does anything the first quarter, that game goes flying over. So a little bit of a wrong read last week, but I think we'll get back on it this week.
So let's talk about the two hidden factors. For Miami, it's the hangover from losing to FSU. It's all the distractions going on in the program, the athletic director being fired, the speculation that the head coach is also going to get fired. How does Miami, and you said that Virginia Tech offensively can do some things that give Miami problems. And Miami has not performed well, like I said, in these situations under Manny Diaz and to a degree, Mark Richt before him. So these are not players that have performed great late in the season when there haven't been a lot of stakes on the line. And they're still playing for bowl eligibility, so that's one carrot. Do you think they care? How does that affect your handicapping of the game? Do they have a hangover after the way they lost to Florida State?
I think a little bit, but not as much as you would think. Now, some of these other teams like Mark Richt, that final stretch run that he had after they were really good, when we lost to Pitt, Clemson, and Wisconsin, we were almost non-competitive. these kids did battle back. So you have to give them credit. We played awful. The penalties, that was one of the worst first quarters that Miami's ever had. I mean, you can look at almost any game to start a game.
They had some bad starts earlier in the year.
No, but we're talking about a combination of they turned the ball over 3 times in a quarter.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
I can't remember. And I think they have 8 penalties in the first quarter. I don't know if I've ever seen that combination. So I think the kids are not going to quit. You know, they're kids. They're going to talk about it. They know that Manny's probably gone. They sit in their hotel rooms. They get calls from their parents and friends. They're texting away. Are the Miami coaches now at this point, since the athletic director was let go, know that their fate is sealed? Yeah. You can be sure that these coaches, even though they care about the kids, they are sending out resumes or making contacts or calling their agents. So there is some distraction, but I think they'll play hard. I mean, I don't think it is quite as much as some people would expect. And if they play well and they win, you want to talk about a bad team coming up next week? Duke is one of the worst teams I've ever seen. I mean, they were at least used to be competitive.
Yeah,
it's like watching almost a Division II team. They're small, they're undersized.
Yeah.
I mean, we should be able to run the table and get to not a great bowl, but a decent bowl, and be able to maybe salvage the season. So I'd like to see the kids play hard. You know, the problem is that Florida State game just meant so much as far as, to Manny, to the program, to recruiting. All of a sudden Florida State's got kids interested in them. I think we would have stolen maybe 2-3 kids of the 4 or 5 that they wanted from South Florida. Now it wouldn't shock me if we don't get any of them.
Yeah. All right. Now, so on the flip side, you talked about coaches sending out resumes and looking for jobs. I mean, obviously you have an entire coaching staff at Virginia Tech that is doing that. And they're doing it while they're preparing that team for this game. How big of an impact does that have? And what effect have you seen through the years in your handicapping of teams that lose coaches, lose head coaches, and how do they typically respond?
So usually if a coach stays on and finishes out the year, the kids play for him. I don't think he was that well liked, Fuente. So, I was wrong. I thought he was going to be wildly successful. I mean, what he had done in Memphis, I mean, it looked like he was, on a trajectory, and he was a really good fit. I'm like, wow, this is the hire. But, there were kids. You talk about kids transferring out immediately. He had 6, 8, 10 kids a year or more, and some good kids leaving, and they didn't mind even giving up their year of eligibility. So maybe him leaving may not be a negative effect. Maybe the kids are like, wow, we got rid of him.
Like, ding dong, the witch is dead. We're fired
up. Right. I mean, it happens. I've seen it happen in sports. So I wouldn't be shocked if they play as like they normally do. I think you're going to see a wide open game.
You got to pick the game. And I know you're probably not giving this game to your clients, but you got to handicap the game, at least as an exercise to decide if you're giving it to your clients.
Right.
And how do you reconcile that having with so much unknown? That probably leads you to pass, right?
So I'm not giving it to my clients. I can tell you that with 100% certainty.
Right.
I mean, last year was the craziest year with all the COVID situations. This year, I was about to play the LA Chargers a day ago. I was literally 2 hours from playing them, and then I find out that Bosa and Tillery, their best 2 defensive linemen, aren't playing. So, I don't play as many games early as I used to play, and there's so many situations. Coaches are getting fired earlier, Gary, because you got to have a coach in place really by December 1st, 3rd, 5th, because signing day, it's the 15th this year, right?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah. So you can't just hire a coach, on the 12th, the 13th, or after signing day. I mean, I think Miami has something like seven commits. Yeah, you might lose 2 or 3 of those.
Champ games, I think, are December the 4th. I think you're going to see a lot of hires made the 5th, 6th.
Right.
So that they can get a visit weekend in at the end of the week before the signing day. And I think you're going to see, because of all the coaching turnover that there's going to be in college football this year, I think more kids than usual might pass on the early signing day and push their decisions off to February. We'll see.
You would think so. I haven't looked at the list. I don't follow recruiting, as much as you do. But, I mean, last year there was very few kids that waited till February. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, most of them have been signing in December. I think with all this, I mean, you look at all the jobs. I mean, USC, LSU. I think there's a chance Michigan comes open. Florida, I think, is going to come open. I mean, there's some big programs that are going to be going through coaching changes. And I think a lot of kids are going to be very
Washington. Yeah, Washington's open now. I mean, the list goes. I mean, even locally down here, FIU. I mean, some of the things that were going on that Butch Davis said that they weren't allowed to recruit. Recruit for 2 years. I mean, that's ludicrous, crazy. I mean, how do you keep a program going? I mean, I knew something was going on.
They might as well just fold it up. If they're not going to run it right, they should just fold it up.
No, I agree.
But so it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out. But as it pertains to this game, I guess you're talking Virginia Tech and the 7.5.
Right. I would take it and lean to the here's what I have noticed. When coaches are let go, and also there's the chance that someone like Manny is let go, these coaches want to display. They're a little more loosey-goosey. Look at LSU, okay? LSU on defense was just playing basic coverages. There was a couple coaches that said LSU is one of the easiest teams to figure out. So after Ed Ogeron was decided he wasn't coming back, their defensive coordinator, he's blitzing like 75 to 80% of the plays. Right. He's just it's crazy. So, I mean, they did have success against Alabama, but now teams have seen it. It wouldn't shock me if both teams, Miami and also Virginia Tech, open up the playbook here.
All right. A couple other games we want to talk to you about. Let's start with the Florida Gators. I mean, did you see what happened with the Florida Gators last week? The way their defense basically went on strike. And I mean, that's literally what happened. It was the Gator flop every single play. I mean, they let Stanford score what? I think it was 48 points in the first half.
42 in the first half.
I mean, have you ever in your life? I mean, they were laying down, Lee, because they're not happy with what's going on in their program. And clearly there's a lot of issues in Gainesville. The firing of Todd Grantham on the defensive side of the ball as defensive coordinator clearly did not go well. All right, so now they're playing out the string with Dan Mullen, who might not be able to stay there, Lee, because how does a head coach stay if his team is laying down and quitting on him?
I agree.
So my question is this. Now you have to handicap this game because we make you. And I'm sure you're not giving this one to your clients either. And you got Florida playing Missouri, and the line on that one is -9 right now. What do you do there?
So the Tigers are trying to get to a bowl game. They're not very good. They're one of the worst run defenses I've ever seen. But you got to care about the game, and they care. They win this game, and they beat Vandy. They're going to a bowl. So it's important. So I think they'll come to play here. They have a quarterback that's competent. They have a running back, I think, that's gained something like 200 yards 3 times this year. So when a team quits, they really quit. And Samford wasn't even a good FCS opponent. They had a losing record. I think they lost one of their games this year, like 52-12 or 52-22. So I would lean probably with Missouri here.
And, Florida is such a mystery. I don't know how anybody could even bet them.
No, I was wrong. Actually, Missouri plays Arkansas the last week. So they have to win one of the 2 weeks to get to a bowl.
Right. Yeah. But Florida to me is like a mess. I don't know how anybody would even.
Who would ever have predicted it? They almost beat Alabama. Crazy.
Amazing. Yeah, crazy. All right. The other game I wanted to talk to you about is Florida State. They're coming off the big win against Miami. That had be a big boost to their program. They were struggling. Now they're thinking, hey, if we can beat Boston College this week and we could beat a reeling Florida team, we can go to a bowl game this year. So you got Florida State playing Boston College, a team that I've always liked all year. They lost their quarterback in the middle of the season for a few games. I think that polluted the environment in Boston College. They lost a few games. I think they're 2-0 since he's come back. How do you see this Florida State Boston College game?
So Florida State has dominated the series. They're 9-1 straight up. But I think BC wants some payback. This quarterback, Jervik, I think he's special. I think he's going to go in the first or second round. I think he's that good. And he makes a difference. They didn't even throw the ball last week much at all. In fact, I think the last 2 games, you would think with a quarterback that's that confident throwing, just shows you they're committed to the run. I think they were 38-20 his first week back, run to throw up passes, and then 54-13 last week. So they could end up throwing the ball a lot more this week, which I think they would have a lot of success against Florida State. I don't think Florida State's that good, and I think they might still be celebrating. Everyone tell them how good they are. So
Miami hangover. Yes, so you're taking
BC.
Yeah.
I like Boston College here, something like 30-23.
All right, Lee. Any other games stick out to you real quick before we let you go?
That's the only other one. Maybe one in the how about in the NFL? Look at the NFL game.
All right.
Probably everyone's going to be watching. We don't throw out many NFL games. It's Kansas City and Dallas. You want a fun game? We've got 2 great quarterbacks, a lot of targets. You got the cheat on one side. You got CD Lamb. Could be a shootout. Just don't think that Dallas has done as well on the road. So I think they only have something like 4 sacks or 5 sacks in 4 games. I like Kansas City in a shootout there, something like probably 38-34. All
right. So he's Lee Sterling. And if you want to reach him and subscribe to his service at ParamountSports.com, you also can call him at 1-800-400-9741. Lee very likely will answer the phone himself and talk to you about the different options that you have to subscribe to his service. Lee, we thank you very much for your insight this week on You Bet CaneSport, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, Gary. Take care.
We'll see you next time, everybody.